Welcome back to another innovation review. Today, we're going to be checking out the S1 from Snapcycle. But before we get into the review, just want to take a second, ask you guys to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you know when we come out with new reviews. It really goes a long way in helping out this channel. Now that we got that out of the way, let's head out for the review. First, let's talk about the looks. One of the things you'll notice right off the bat is this is a folding bike. We've got that folding hinge right there in the middle of the down tube. We've also got that telescoping stem, so anybody who sort of has an idea about what this bike could be knows it's probably a folding e-bike. I really like the fact that the rear rack bolts right onto the back of the frame there. The whole thing just has this very unified vibe to it. Now, if the rear rack was integrated into the frame, I feel like that would kind of add a little bit more here, but this is something where you could remove that back rack if you wanted to. The bike itself looks a little bit heavier than it is. It comes off a little bit lighter, which I was pretty impressed by. And the S1 is a little bit smaller, but it has those big tires and just feels like it could handle a little bit more than your average folding bike. Next, let's talk about the motor. So the motor we have here is a Snapcycle Branded 750 watt rear hub motor. Now this motor has about 85 Newton meters of torque and a peak output somewhere around the 1200 watts range. Now all of the Snapcycle bikes come with a 25 amp charger, and it really allows us to pull a little bit more juice out of the battery, giving us some more performance when we want to. Now, if you do unlock it, you are going to lose a little bit of distance because we're going to be sucking more power out of the battery, but we went in there and we adjusted it, so this is in Class 3 mode. Again, we're getting that full 25 amps of the charger. So once we did that to the bike, this thing really does get up and go. Pedal assist levels 1 and 2 have somewhat of a gradual uptick, but once you go from pedal assist level 2 to 3, you really start to see a big increase in the amount of power that's being generated here. From a noise perspective, this motor here was pretty quiet, quieter even than the R1. And the R1 was on the lower end as far as motor noise goes. So the S1 motor is powerful and silent, pretty much all we're looking for in a rear hub electric bike. Next, let's talk about the battery. The battery we have here is a Samsung 48 volt, 14 amp hour, 672 watt hour lockable removable battery. Now the battery is stored inside the down tube, so in order to get to it, we'll have to fold it up, unlock the battery, and then pull it out. Now the fact that we have a removable battery here is excellent because it's going to allow us to have some flexibility when we go to charge this battery. Now, if we didn't want to take it off and we wanted to leave it in the bike, we do have a charging port here on the opposite side that you can pop out and charge the battery with. There are a couple downsides to the placement of this charging port. The first one is when you go to pull the battery out, if you have that little stopper in there, you can pull it or rip it or dismember that just a little bit. Now, we didn't have that issues. We've been doing this for a while, so it was easy for us to remember to, pop it out. But after a long day, you could forget to pull that out, and then you go to pull the battery out, and that could cause some issues having that rubber there in the charging port. Now, there are some that we have seen where the charging port is on the opposite side of the hinge here, and that is convenient because then there's nothing extra that we have to do in order to pull the battery out. One of the other things we noticed is this charge port is a little bit close to the welds here, almost coming into the weld just a little bit. Now, I don't think that's going to hurt the integrity of the bike in the long run, but we would like to see charging ports probably a little bit further away from these welds. Now, when you go to charge the battery up, it should take in between 4 to 5 hours to get a full charge here. And once you got that fully charged, you should be able to get anywhere between 30 miles to 45 miles. After the riding that we've done on it, I'm thinking those are based on the Class 2 settings on the bike, because once you unlock the controller to that 25 amps and you're going that faster speed of 28 miles per hour instead of 20, you are going to decrease the amount of time you're able to travel. But if you're looking to get a longer trip and you don't necessarily want to hit those top speeds of 28 miles per hour, you can leave it in that Class 2 setting and you get a top speed of 20 miles per hour, and you should be able to hit these numbers pretty easy. The battery also comes with a 3 amp charger, whereas we've seen a lot of these 2 amp chargers in the past. So the fact that we have a 3 amp charger means that we're going to be able to charge the battery a little bit faster, get out on the road a little bit easier. Next, let's talk about the brakes. So the brakes we have here are unbranded mechanical disc brakes. Now we do have motor cutoff inhibitors here, which is an excellent safety feature to see, especially for going 28 miles per hour. Heading on down to the wheels, we've got 180mm discs both on the front and the rear. Now when it comes to braking, I found that the bike was able to brake really, really well. Even when we were going 28 miles per hour on some asphalt, we were still able to stop about that 10 to 14-foot mark, depending on what we were doing. And then if we wanted to get more of a controlled stop, anywhere between that 8 to 10 feet was pretty reasonable to get, even if we're going 28 miles per hour. So normally I like to comment on mechanical versus hydraulic disc brakes. You know, I'm a big fan of hydraulics, but in this case, these brakes do the job that we need them to do, so no complaints here. I didn't find that they were lacking for what this bike's supposed to be doing. Next, let's talk about the gears. The S1 comes with a 7-speed Shimano SIS index shifter up here on the right-hand side. As you guys know, I am a fan of these. They're super simple, super easy, and if you have to do any sort of maintenance on it, not terribly complicated to get in there. Now, it's not super easy, but it is something you can do with the help of the Park Tools boys and all of their wonderful, wonderful YouTube how-to videos. If you guys haven't seen those, check them out. They're awesome. Hashtag not sponsored. Hashtag please sponsor me. Hashtag, but right now we're not sponsored. And that somewhat easy to maintain Shimano SIS index shifter is attached back here to this 7-speed Shimano tourney derailleur. Now, right out of the box, when we were shifting through it, there was a little bit of adjustments that probably need to be made. However, as we mentioned in the Casual Friday video, this is a bike that we got from another reviewer. So I'm not sure who it was, or they did some adjustments, or things got moved around in shipping. I'm not 100% positive, but for us right out of the box, there was a little bit of skipping between 3 and 4, and that's something that is a very easy thing to do. Again, check out the Park Tools guys, they tell you how to do it. The cranks we have here are 160mm, and then we've got some Welgo folding pedals. Now, when I was out there, some of the stuff I was doing, as soon as I started to get off-road, I was sort of wishing that I had a bigger platform pedal. So if I was going to keep the bike long-term, I would look at upgrading these pedals. I don't necessarily need the folding function here for my use case. If you do, then, you know, these are nice. They come with folding pedals. But for me, I wouldn't necessarily need those, so I would opt for a thinner, wider platform pedal. Next, let's talk about the extras. The S1 does come stock with a few extras. The first one, as we mentioned in the intro, is going to be that rear rack. I'm a big fan of this rear rack and this particular style of rear rack. We've seen it a few times on a few different bikes. And when you can mount the rear rack to the frame, it's just so much better than having to deal with those thinner frames that you get with the arms and they're all around. And those ones have a tendency to get bent in shipping usually. I don't know if I've experienced one of those being bent, even in like an accident or, you know, the bike falling over or anything like that. Usually it's in shipping. You know, something gets put on top of the bikes or yada, yada, yada. So the fact that we have this nice, beefier, thicker tubed rear rack is awesome. We've also got fenders both in the front and the rear. Now these are sort of a half fender or a 3/4 fender. I don't know exactly what the right term is for that, but they are squared off, which at first I thought did look sort of strange because we're not necessarily used to seeing that. But when you look at it on this bike, it fits it. I think it fits the style, and I didn't have any issues when we were going off-road. Didn't get hit with any small rocks or dirt or anything like that. And as you guys know, I'm a fan of plastic versus metal, so I really like these fenders. If I had the right attachment points on my own bike, may look at getting something similar. And then up front, we have this front light. Now, the front light is not terribly bright. It's very on par, industry standard sort of brightness on the light. So if this was something where we were going to be riding it at night in a neighborhood, it's really more of a beacon so people can see you, not necessarily going to allow you to see everything. And if you were out in an all dark sort of environment, then you probably would want something a little bit brighter. Now, we don't have any rear lights here. I did talk to Snapcycle, and they said they do plan on including some integrated lights in the future. So hopefully when you get your S1, it's going to show up with some integrated rear lights. They already have the spot for it, so that was the question was, hey, are we going to get some? And yes, I believe we are going to be getting some integrated rear lights, so there you go. Next, let's talk about folding this thing up. As we have mentioned the whole time, this is a folding bike, and folding it up is fairly simple. Nothing too fancy about it. Everything works well. So no real complaints there. Once we get it folded up, it is going to be 40 inches by 31 inches by 21 inches. So not too terribly big when it comes to these fat tire folding e-bikes. Some of the ones that we've tested recently have been the bigger tires. We got these 26 by 4 inch tires. So having these 20-inch tires is going to, decrease some of that length when we are folding it up. And like I mentioned, it has a lot of good spots to grab it. It's fairly light, well balanced. So folding this thing up is super easy. Next, let's talk about the suspension. Starting off with suspension, we have got this unbranded fork up here in the front. Now, this is a spring fork with 30 millimeters of travel. We also have preload and lockout adjustments. Now, I did on accident once get a little airborne, and the bike handled itself fine, but it isn't something you'd want to be taking on mountain bike trails where you're hitting jumps and things like that. Now, it's not what that was designed for, and I don't want people to get the idea that I think that's what this bike is for. But if you needed to get off-road, you needed to do something a little bit more not exactly a bike path, I think this could handle it. But as far as like getting air and stuff like that, it's not what it's designed for. Now, when you are using it for what it's designed for, which is riding around either in the neighborhood, bike trails, bike paths, places like that, it really did a good job of absorbing a lot of the shock of the road, whether that was, ruts or rocks, sticks, things like that. And of course, in tandem with that are these giant CST BFT 20 by 4 inch tires. Now, these tires are, I think, the same tires we've seen on a few bikes that have these 20 by 4 inch tires. So far, I love them. There's no real complaints here. I think they do what they're supposed to do. These ones, you can fill them up to 30 PSI. And if you wanted to experiment with less PSI, you could do that as well. If you were going to some place that had maybe some soft sand or, softer, looser dirt, things like that, you may want to let out some of the PSI to get a better grip. The other part of suspension that we like to talk about is the butt suspension. So the saddle we have here is this Snapcycle foam comfort saddle. And I don't have any complaints about it because this is such an upright ride and the geometry here. I almost feel like any saddle would be comfortable. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it's such a comfortable riding position to be in that I'm not sure if the saddle was good or bad or matched my sit bones or anything. I just have no complaints about it. Next, let's talk about the controls. All the controls for the Snapcycle are going to be over here on the left-hand side. We've got the same keypad we saw on the R1. We've got a plus button to raise our level of pedal assist. We've got the minus button to lower our level of pedal assist. M to change through the things that this display is going to show us. And then we've also got the on and off buttons. So to turn the display on, you're going to press and hold the power button, as you would think. And once the bike is on, it's going to tell you a few things here. So it's going to tell you your speed, your trip distance, your average speed, max speed, the battery, pedal assist level, and if our lights are on or off. And in order to turn our lights on, we're just going to press and hold this up button. So over here on the right-hand side, we have got the half grip. And the half grip on this side, these rubber ergonomic grips, I like them. I think they feel well. This one was a little bit loose, had a little bit of some turn to it. The one on the opposite side, the full grip, didn't have nearly as much as I've seen in some other review videos. So for me, this other grip was excellent. Now, you do usually want locking grips, right? So you want a grip that has at least one locking point. 2 locking points would be the best. But if you're not doing anything too extreme, which you wouldn't be on this bike, you probably would be fine with 1 locking point. So as far as possible upgrades in the future, that's something I might throw Snapcycle's way. Is just, give us a grip that has a locking mechanism. That way, when we're out there riding around, we're not having to worry about losing our grip a little bit. Next, let's talk about who this bike might be for. Now, the 2 main things that I always mention when it comes to if a bike is for you or not is if it's going to fit you, right? If riding this bike is going to be comfortable. And the 2 biggest measurements for me are the reach and the standover height. So the reach here on the S1 is 18 inches, which is very standard, maybe even a little bit more on the small side. And the second one we look at is the standover height. So the standover height here is 28 inches, which is a little bit maybe on the taller side. If we're looking at like a step throughs, the lowest you can go, and, some of the bigger bikes are as high as you can go, this is probably somewhere in the middle, a little bit higher than that. And some of the other measurements here are going to be a 27-inch minimum saddle height, a 33.5-inch maximum saddle height, 22.75 width here at the handlebars. We've also got a 45-inch wheelbase and a 65-inch length overall. So those are just some of the measurements on the bike. And if you are looking to fit this bike to yourself, there's plenty of videos on YouTube that show you how to fit a bike to yourself, how to have somebody help you measure, how to measure yourself, So if this is something you're looking at and you're kind of on the cusp whether you think it's going to fit you or not, tons of good videos to check out, and you can use some of these measurements to figure out if that's going to work for you. And that's going to do it for the nuts and bolts of the bike. We're going to take it outside for the ride test. Now, we do have a full ride test, which we will link here. But for the rest of this video, it's just going to be some highlights from the ride test. So without further ado, let's head outside for the ride test. Let's go ahead and put it in pedal assist level 0. And let's test out this bike as a regular old bike. Shifting down to 1. I'll just go through the gears here. So we're in 1. It is pretty nice. I feel like I'm up there just kind of cruising around. Here shifting into 2nd. Good shift there. Into 3rd. A little bit of a hiccup there. Shifting into 4th. Okay, going into 5th gear. 6th gear. And 7th. So let's go ahead and turn it on. Let's see what happens here. About a quarter rotation there till it kicks in. Pedal assist level 1 is taking us to about that 8-9 mile per hour mark. Let's go ahead and put it in pedal assist level 2. A little bump there. Pedal assist level 3. Starting to feel that larger controller in there. Pedal assist level 4. Now, pedal assist level 4 is about as high as you can go without getting any ghost pedaling, but we do have this in class 3 mode, so it is going to go to a top speed of 28 miles per hour. All right, pedal assist level 5. Let's roll. It's pretty much about that 23 miles per hour. It's very hard for me to get any more on unless I'm really getting after it. I guess if I'm getting after it, we can get going 28 miles per hour, no problem. But yeah, we are getting a little bit of ghost pedaling here. So if you got it in that class 3 mode, one of those things where you can still get the speed, but you're not going to necessarily have the experience of riding at a nice, easy pace and being able to go 28 miles per hour. You really got to pop, 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 get going on there. Oh baby, let's go ahead and test out those brakes. I got a nice little straightaway here. We did a full hammer, going 28 miles per hour. That's probably about 12 to 14 feet there. But we did quite a bit of skidding. And that's going to do it for our review of the S1 from Snapcycle. If you guys want to know more about Snapcycle or any of the models they offer, you can head over to snapcycle.com. And if you guys have any questions for us, let us know down in the comments. Love talking to you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.